And then I cut the film. It felt good. I mean, I was happy with the film, but I have no idea that it could be such a hit. You know, it really happened by accident. City of God is the name of a book written by Paulo Lins, and I was given the book in Christmas. I read it and I was so impressed. The book talks about a part of the country that I lived for 40 years, 45 years, and I didn't know nothing about it. I was really, really shocked. I told friends about the book that they should read it, and my partner said, you should shoot. You're looking for something to shoot, start filming, and that's a good story. I said, no, it's impossible. I'm from São Paulo. The story is very, very violent. In Rio de Janeiro, different world. I'll never do that. And she insisted a lot. So I finally called Paulo Lins, the writer, and said, yes, come to Rio. I'll walk around with you in City of God, and if you like it, you would adapt it. And that's what I did. And I went to City of God, walking with Paulo Lins, and in the first 3 minutes I walked in, a boy came with a gun and put it in my head, and because he just saw me, he didn't see that I was with other people behind. So the guy that was with us, was a drug dealer, said, no, they're with me, but it was a very interesting experience, because I realized that the book was not bullshit, you know, that was the real thing. And then I visited City of God, spoken to Paulo, and decided to adapt. That's the story. I never thought, I mean, I would do a film about violence, about a world that I don't know nothing about it. I had to be very open to understand that world and picture it. When I decided to do it, to make it, from the moment I bought the rights till the film was ready was 1.5 years. It was quite fast. We wrote the script in 6 months. I wrote the script and I started preparing to shoot. I decided that I was going to shoot the film if I could find the cast, because at that time you couldn't find young black Brazilian actors. You know, there was like 1 or 2, and I felt that it should feel real, otherwise it wouldn't worth doing it. So my first thing was finding actors, and to do that, I had to create actors, because there wasn't any. So I decided to set up a sort of school for acting in Rio de Janeiro, bring boys from different favelas in Rio, work with them for a long period, and if I found the actors, I would make the film. And to create the school for actors, I knew about Katia Lundi, because she had worked in favelas. She directed. She was Walter Salles' assistant in Central Station, and she had co-directed a documentary inside favelas. She was very well connected in different favelas in Rio. So I met her to ask if she was interested in being my assistant in the project. She said no, because she didn't want to be assistant anymore, but she could help me to set up this cast. So we found people, we had different crews, different groups of people going to different favelas with a little VHS camera, recording faces. So people would come in front of the camera like this and say, my name is this, I have 15 years old, I would like to be an actor, anything. I would see those faces for 15 seconds and to see if I felt there was some charisma or something. I watched like 2,000 faces from different areas of the Rio, selected 200, and those 200 came to make this workshop. They didn't know I was gonna shoot a film. They were being invited to participate on a workshop on acting. I mean, I would give them the bus ticket and a sandwich and a Coke every day. That's what they would get. And a little certificate. They participated on it. And so during this workshop, it took us 5 months. I was there every day. So we had our coach, Guto Fraga, and he would do exercises, all these things that actors does. And in the end of every class, we had improvisations of scenes. So we would suggest a scene that was in the script. They didn't know, but scenes from the script. And we would suggest to different groups, and they would prepare something and would come and present to the group. That was the process. And by doing that, I started seeing, oh, this guy could be this character, this guy could, you know. And and also the lines, because in their improvisation they would come with great lines. So I would get the lines, write down, send to the writer, and the writer would include, and that's how the script was shaped. Okay. Using the boys as our source of... And little by little, I started seeing, well, this guy could be little Z. And so I would ask him, why don't you play this, say this line? And in the end of this process, I knew who my cast would be. And Katia Lundia helped me a lot in this process. In the group, in the film, Mateus is the only professional, very known actor, very solid actor. But in the end of the film, you see some white characters. They're professional actors as well. 95% of the cast are people from first-time actors from favelas. Seu Jorge was a crazy story because I was rehearsing the same character with Lázaro Ramos, who's a really great Brazilian actor. And at the same time, Karim Amus, another Brazilian director, was rehearsing with Seu Jorge. Seu Jorge wasn't an actor, he was a musician. He had a band, and Karim found him, and they were rehearsing a film called Madame Satã, in which he would play an homosexual, a transvestite, very famous in Rio. And at some point, I mean, we're gonna shoot in 2 months, something like that. And one day Karim calls me and say, Fernando, I have a problem here. I know you're working with Lázaro. I needed Lázaro in my film, and I have Seu Jorge, who's a great actor, but he can't do my film. Because all the scenes, that's sex scenes and all that, he couldn't do it. And the character was very feminine, and Seu Jorge just couldn't do it. So he asked me, could you swap the actors? I mean, I was rehearsing already, and he was rehearsing for a while. Such a crazy idea, but I said, well, I can talk to Lázaro. And Lázaro, for him, was a good thing, because in my film, he was just a character that would come in a specific part. Yeah. And in Karim's film, I mean, he would be the lead. A film produced by Walter Salles. I mean, it's a good deal. Yeah. So I've spoken to Lázaro. He says, yeah, I'm happy to be the protagonist of the other film. And then we changed the actors, you know. And that's how he came. He came on board like 2-3 weeks before we shot. So we had like 2 weeks of preparation. It was a completely different character, of course. And I mean, he's great. And now he became a solid actor in Brazil as well. I just shot a film with him 2 months ago. Okay. He's really amazing. He has a presence. The whole process of making the film was invented to protect the actors. I mean, they were not professionals, so I knew I couldn't work like I use with professional actors, that you give them marks, and they read the lines from the script, memorize and act, and you give them marks in the set, so they stop in the right place for the lights and all that. I couldn't do that because they weren't trained for that. So the plan was to let them as free as possible. I never gave them the script. All the scenes were prepared with improvisations. I would ask them, well, in this scene, there's this guy who sells guns, and you two are trying to buy guns, and you like this one, he likes this one, so you have this discussion, and they would improvise the scene. And then I would watch and say, well, that was good, but you're talking too much, go straight to this point, cut this line, repeat that line you said, and why don't you say this? And you can answer that. Those were lines from the script. And my suggestions were written, but they didn't know. So little by little, they would repeat and repeat and repeat, and I start shaping scene by scene. That's how it was done. They didn't know they were, I mean, saying the lines from the script. In the end of the process, if you read the last script and the film, I think 40% of what is said in the film was written. 60% was created on the day, you know. And then to shoot, the idea was every scene they would come to start making the scene, and they would do the whole scene without stopping. There was no decoupage, you know. It was from top to the end. And we would try to grab the scene like a documentary. That's why it feels like a documentary. When we use 16 millimeters, of course it makes it easier because it's lighter, but it's cheaper. I mean, I had no money to make the film, and we would spend a lot of footage because every time we would shoot like this whole scene, so we would spend a lot of negative. So the idea of 16 millimeters was really to make it cheaper. So for the wider shots that I see, landscapes and lots of details, we would use 35 millimeters but for most of the film, close-ups and actors talking, this is all 16. Before I started the film, I made we had all that process that I mentioned, the workshop on acting. In the end of this process, this was, we did it, I think, from August till November in '98, I think. And then in December, next month, I decided to make a short film just to check if I had already chosen my actors. And I decided to make a short film to see how they felt, how it would be shooting a real film. And also to find the way of the lighting, makeup. It was a big test for the film. The film would be shot like 4 months later. I did this short. This short, by the way, was quite nice. He won Best Short in Berlin in the following year. And to shoot the short, we decided to shoot it in City of God, where we were planning to shoot the feature. But in the first night we were shooting, we were surrounded by drug dealers. There was an event and they wouldn't let us go. We were arrested. The police came. It was a really, really hard situation. We were like kidnapped. So after that event, we decided not to shoot in City of God, and we found another place, another favela, also controlled by drug dealers, but we felt it was more safe, more trustable. So we negotiated a different deal and we shot somewhere else. So it was good. We did the short because we could have had lots of problems there. We shot in Cidade Alta, Cité de Dieu. After you make a deal with the drug dealers that controls the area, it's all good. And this deal that we made in this other place was, we never gave them money. This is something I really didn't want to do. But the drug dealers, they need to be friends with the community, because the community hides them and protects them. So they always helping community in all senses, taking to the hospital and helping. They're really, and so to allow us to shoot there, they asked for us to give some computers for their community center. We built some soccer field, 2 soccer fields. We did some gardens, vegetable gardens in the community center. And after that, they allowed it. And once they said, you can shoot there, it's all good. Nobody will, not even the police can take us out, So that's how it was done. And we had no problem. Violence was present, in everyday life. It's just something natural. So I really didn't want to make it like a spectacular thing. I avoided in purpose, those kind of shots that you put the gun in front, pointing to the lance and this kind of thing, or bloods. Of course, I could have had blood splitting and this kind, and I avoided as much as I could. So you don't see, everybody says the film is violent, but you watch any TV series, American TV series, is much, much more graphic than City of God. So this was like a concept. We don't want graphic violence. We have only the blood in the boy's foot when he's shot. Because we had, but it takes like less than a second. You see that, and that's it. Because the idea is not, and it's a wide shot. It's not a close. I don't want spectacular blood splitting, nothing of that. We were shooting and excited because the performances were quite good. The material was very confused because we would shoot. It wasn't very planned, but the performances were great, so I was confident. And then I cut the film, and it felt good. I was happy with the film, but I have no idea that it could be such a hit. It really happened by accident. I remember I finished the film, and the first person outside of the process for whom I showed the film was Walter Salles. Walter was one of the producers. His part in the film was the financing. He was supposed to make a film for Miramax in Italy called The Redemption of the Virgin. And so in his agreement with Miramax, he said, okay, I'll make your film if you finance 2 other very small films from Brazil, which was Madame Satin and City of God. So he would have like 38 million for his film and 1.5 million for mine, and that was the deal. and Miramax agreed. And with this money, I was going to shoot the film. But this was January or February, like 2 months before I started shooting. I was preparing, I had the actors, was preparing, and the money wouldn't come. And one day, I mean, Miramax calls me and say, well, we canceled Walter's project for different reasons, so we're not committed to you anymore, we're not sending you the money. And I had no money, so I had to finance the film myself, which was a very stupid thing to do. But on the other hand, it was good because, I mean, I had no commitment with anybody. I was signing the checks, so I could do whatever I wanted, you know. It was really a stupid thing. I wouldn't do this again. But in the end of the process, when I cut the film, I said, well, now I have to get my money back. And that's it. I mean, I had a good film. With nobody said anything. I did exactly what I wanted. So I sent the tape to Walter to see what he thought about the film, because he was involved. And one day I was sleeping, like a week later, I sent it to Los Angeles. I think he was in Los Angeles. He called me at 3 in the morning and said, Fernando, I just watched the film, it's fantastic. And he was really, I mean, loud about it. I said, Walter, it's 3 in the morning, I'm sleeping, my wife is here, you're waking us up. No, but the film is excellent. And that's when I realized that maybe it was better than I thought, or even better, I don't know, because I was happy. And then I had to get like 1,800,000 back. My personal money. So I came to Paris. I had a friend that Walter introduced me to, a guy who became a very good friend, Donald Reveau. Unfortunately, he died. And Donald said, I know Vincent Maraval from Wild Bunch. We set up a meeting. I went to Vincent's office, and he was very cold. And I got with my tape and say, Vincent, Donald talk to you about my film. Here it is. Do you want to watch it? He said, no, wait here. I'm gonna watch it. And he went to his room, closed the door. So I stayed in the in the lobby waiting for him. Then I remember that. Then he came out of the room and said, I'm gonna buy it. How much do you want? He's so cool. I was quite. I said, what? He said, yes, I'm buying the film. He didn't say, it's great, I love it, nothing. And then they set up a deal, but he was buying only for the whole world, but I didn't want to sell Brazil, because I thought in Brazil it could make money, and I wouldn't know how to promote better. So I said, okay, I'll sell you, but I'll keep Americas for me. And we set up a deal, and this paid more than half of what I owned. Then I went to New York to negotiate with the Americans distributors, Brazil and the Americas. And so I went back to Miramax, and then I finally sold it to Miramax. Okay. I'm sure that we went to Cannes because I was completely unknown. There's no known actor. There was no reason for Cannes to take the film. Well, it was a good film, but Cannes, you need the influence, you know. It's not, you need to know Thierry Frémaux. So I'm sure that Maraval convinced Thierry, showed the film to Thierry, and Thierry, he chosen City of God and Madame Satin. Yeah. By chance, the two films that we were together all the time. Both films, Madame Satin and City of God, were selected for Cannes, but both were out of competition, because in that same year, Walter Salles, who was the producer in both of them, was part of the jury. So unfortunately, I couldn't compete, because I think the film had some chances. I don't know. It was a magical experience, because, I mean, to see all the boys dressed with tuxedos and walking in the steps and taking photos was such a lovely, beautiful moment. But, I mean, we were completely unknown. So I went to Cannes. I had like 14 interviews scheduled. I thought I was gonna do my thing and then spend a week watching films would be great, and that's it. But after the first screening, I remember we had my 14 interviews, and then we had this first screening for journalists. And in half an hour after the screening, the phone starts ringing, people asking for interviews. And it was like 210 interviews. I spent the whole week, morning, afternoon, in the top of a hotel with interviews from all over the world, and people inviting me to direct other things. I went back from Cannes with 17 scripts proposed for me to direct. Was like an explosion, you know. I didn't understand anything. And then, and then the film didn't go to the Oscars because it wasn't selected for Brazil as the Brazilian film for the Oscars. It wasn't picked as for Best International Film. But in the following year, Harvey Weinstein, he liked the film very much, so he made a campaign. I was preparing The Constant Garden, and he called me and said, Fernando, come to US, let's do a campaign for City of God, for best picture, best director, best... And I said, no, I can't. I'm in London working. If you want to do it, but I'm not going to do anything. I'm doing something else. Thank you. And I just didn't care. But he made the campaign, and I don't know how the film was selected for not international category, but director, acting, photography, and we got 4 nominations, which was a big surprise, including one for myself, Best Director. In Brazil, I mean, at that time, Brazilian cinema wasn't going well. I mean, a Brazilian film would do, a good Brazilian film would do like 300,000 tickets, would sell 300,000 tickets. And City of God made 3 million, sold 3 million tickets. So it was, I think, for our industry, was like a mark, you know. It's like we came to a different step. And after that, it's like the Brazilian cinema, the audience start trusting Brazilian films. So a few years later, there was a film, Elite Squad, that made 5 million and 7 million and 10 million. So it was an important film for our industry. Nobody in Brazil would believe that a film shot in favela with black actors unknown could make any money. So that's why nobody would shoot inside favela in this kind of story. But after the success, all the industry said, wow, this universe, this kind of story makes money. So there was really a big wave of films in favela, different stories, a lot on crime, but dramas and all kinds of story in favelas until today. Now there's soap operas that happens inside favelas, and it's like finally we're including the whole Brazil in our imaginary. Yeah, after City of God, I mean, I had a problem with the film because it's based on a film that talks only about crime and violence. The book was, as I mentioned, the book was written by Paulo Lins, who was raised in City of God. He told me that he was writing the stories that he had heard in his everyday life. And then sometimes he would see one of his characters passing by his window. He would go downstairs, talk to the guy, come back and write the story. And that's how... So the book is a compilation of 80, 90 stories, different stories. There's no arch. You see a story and then another one with different characters. And then the character from this chapter, you see him again in the other chapter and this. And so you see the same guys, but there's no arch. So that was created by Braulio, the writer. But anyway, the book was only about crime, about violence. And when I finished the film, I said, wow, that's how I picture these places, and it's not true. I mean, there's a life. Violence is 2% of the population deals with drugs and all that. So we decided to make a series for Brazilian television to show the other side. So it was the story of 2 young boys that lived in a favela, and they're trying to make money, and they always get in troubles, but there's no crime, there's no gunshot, there's no, it's really ordinary life in the favela. It was called City of Men. We did 4 seasons for Globo TV, quite successful. The boys became known actors. Both of them were in City of God, and then they became quite known. And now this year, HBO is releasing a series called City of God, which is the sequel of the film. You see the same characters, the ones we didn't shot in the film, so they're back. But now the point of the series is not drug dealers, but it's really the community. The lead actors are people working for the communities that works on black culture, and of course they have problems, but we're trying to create a different perspective. This series, I'm not the director or the writer, I'm just a producer of the series. We'll start shooting the 2nd season now, and the idea of the season is to show how the drug lords lost their power inside the favelas, and the militia replaced them, because that's what's happening in Brazil nowadays. The militia, who are policemen that were expelled from the corporation. They create kind of gangs, and now they control the favelas, the areas. So this TV series, the idea is to make 3 seasons, is to show how we let them take control. And this is quite big. I mean, there's a senator in Brazil who was son of the ex-president Bolsonaro, who's been sued because of his connections with the militia. Bolsonaro is a supporter of the militia. I mean, these guys that control favela, they were in the presidency of Brazil. They're big. They're really controlling the country. It's a big thing. So this series is showing how did we allow them to start controlling Rio de Janeiro. Lula mentioned the film. I showed the film at the time the president was Fernando Henrique, the president of Brazil. We had a screening in our White House in Brazil, Palácio da Alvorada. So I think it had an impact, but I think that the biggest impact was really giving visibility for the favelas and for this side B of Brazil that nobody wanted to see, nobody wanted to, we would see favelas only in newspaper or TV news, and it was always from the point of view of outside, talking about the crimes and people murdered. That was all. So I think this was the first time the camera was inside and telling a story from their point of view, which it is. I mean, Paulo Lins, the writer, is from inside. So that was the big thing. And I think, as I was mentioning, after this film, there was a wave of films on favela, and that was the big transformation. That's how the film impacted the country. Yeah, in the last years, I met a lot of people, or sometimes I get emails or messages from people who says, very good film directors that say, well, I decided to start making films because of your film. I mean, I know the City of God influenced a lot of you, and directors that I really admire. They come to me and say, well, this film was because of yours, that's nice. I mean, it's good to know that in some way you touched some hearts, and so I'm glad to see. And it's amazing. I mean, 20 years later, 22 years later, I'm here in France showing the film, and it seems that the film didn't age. And there's something interesting. I've never watched City of God again. The last time I watched it was 2001. I said I can't watch it again enough because it's really, I couldn't stand it anymore because you know so well the film. So tonight I'm gonna watch it for the first time in 22 years. I'm quite excited.
Konbini!